My name is Tom Gaudetta, and I am Product Manager for the Kepware business. We are talking about KEPServerEX version 6.6. This is our release webinar for that product, which came out on the 14th of November. Hopefully you will have all had a chance to take a peek at our website to see some of the new features, but this is a rundown of what we have so far, and I want to share with you. So good morning, good afternoon. As usual, you will receive an email with a PDF of the slides and a link to the webinar within a few days. And you can always check out some more information on Kepware by following our training page for information at kepware.com/products/training. So we have a few things in version 6.6. First off, we're going to talk about security, some feature enhancements, and then a brand new driver we have out with this release. It's going to hit a whole new market. Hopefully it's the one that you're in and will assist you in bringing more connectivity into your facility and be able to provide more insights into your process and bring lots more data out of the silos that exist in your work environment. Focus is where we're starting off with. It's a really important piece for the Kepware business. We recognize that our server is the runtime of a lot of factories, and we want to make sure that we are always up to date so that you and your customers and your environment can be as secure as possible. And so we've spent a fair amount of energy, again, in this release to ensure that KEPServerEX version 6.6 demonstrates PTC's continued investment to help manufacturers reduce risks associated with security threats. With the increased focus in application security, users can confidently upgrade to the latest version, knowing Kepware is continuously improving product security in order to keep up with those modern standards. Next, we're going to move into feature enhancements. These are continuously improvement upgrades that we're doing to our drivers to ensure that the functionality that you desire exists within them. So we've done some feature enhancements on a couple of different drivers. The first one is one that affects oil and gas customers in general. It is to change the way that we do some connection attempt settings for certain drivers. And this is going to enable optimized communications for limited bandwidth telemetry networks. So you're going to see that in oil and gas as well as water and wastewater networks. And this is going to touch on our drivers for Allen Bradley DF1 serial, our Lufkin serial, our Modbus RTU serial, and our Weatherford serial driver. This is really going to improve the way that those connections occur, ensuring that a device that may be offline for a multitude of reasons is not slowing up the communication of any other device that's out on a particular pad or preventing you from moving on to a different location within your limited bandwidth network. Another enhancement we've done is associated with the Fanuc Focas Ethernet driver. This is a big one because we've had a lot of customers requesting new access to specific data types within their CNC machines. And we found that we could target a lot of information off of these controllers by going into what's called the CNC RD parameter, read parameter addressing space. So we've extensively shown how to do this within the help file for the driver, added a lot of new information there, and it's going to allow you access to hundreds of new machine-specific parameters. These are the parameters that the machine builder themselves, so any CNC machine that has decided to utilize a Fanuc Focas controller as the functionality to control the CNC machine will have access to these different parameters. It gives you access options as well as parameters, bits within bytes. So lots of new information available. As I think I've mentioned before on previous releases, this does require a vendor-specific library. So Fanuc has to provide this library called K737 library for this driver to properly interact with these controllers. I do want to let you all know that Fanuc at one point was looking to deprecate this library support in favor of their newer K738 library, but we have learned recently that they will continue supporting the K737 for the foreseeable future, which will allow drivers like ours to access these machines, including all of this brand new functionality with the CNC RD-RAM address. So lots of great news there within the CNC world. A few more drivers we touched on this particular release. Allen Bradley Control-Logix Ethernet unsolicited. We recognize that customers wanted to be able to change the addressing within that in a nice, succinct way, quickly and programmatically. So we've added that capability to the configuration API. So you can access that just as you would with any other configuration piece with our server through REST calls hitting the configuration API endpoints. We brought our CodeSys Ethernet driver up to date with their newest PLC handler version. So this will support all of the CodeSys devices that are out there, including the latest ones running the latest CodeSys runtime. The EFN exporter plugin, we've added some security work around different DSNs to make sure that you're getting the most benefits out of the secure DSN capabilities. We've added a little more station numbers onto the Mitsubishi Ethernet driver from 64 to 120, plus a couple of others there, number 125, number 126. And we've also done some asynchronous tag packaging for the torque tool driver, bringing some more functionality to that as well. As always for our releases, you can find each of the new feature enhancements under the release notes at kepware.com. So any additional information you're looking for there and any of the new features we've added to those drivers, you can of course find detailed information in the help files. We get our brand new driver for version 6.6. I'm extraordinarily excited about this. This is a project I've been working on for quite some time, and I'm very happy to share it with all of you today. This driver is going to touch on a lot of customers throughout the world. It is a protocol that is specific to injection molding machines. It was developed in the 2000s. It's a file-based protocol. It's got some nuances, and it's been a really fun project, and we're seeing a lot of interest in this throughout the world. We think it's going to really help customers gather more data and be able to monitor and create more efficiencies in their systems by having that data. So this protocol, EUROMAP 63, is, as I mentioned, a little bit older. It's from the 2000s era. It is specific to injection molding machines. And we are the first out-of-the-box connectivity in this market. So to date, there's been no other injection molding machine vendor-agnostic connectivity software focused on this. It's going to provide personas across the enterprise visibility into the production, which will allow for efficiencies to be increased by determining differences between different machines and how you can improve the way that they're operating in a very succinct manner. The logos that you see on the right-hand side are the different manufacturers of injection molding machines that we have validated our software against. This is, by no means is an endorsement of those manufacturers or they endorsing us, simply stating that we have had the ability to connect to these machines with our driver for our own validation to ensure that they work properly. So that's Fanuc, Cincinnati Millicron, Craftsman-Phi, Sumitomo DMAG, Toyo Machine and Metal, as well as Engel Machines. So a very large section of the injection molding market is covered there, and we have connectivity as long as those individual machines that we're talking about, their model numbers, line up and have the capability to communicate over EUROMAP 63. Information about the protocol itself, it is file-based. This means that KEPServerEX needs to have access to a shared folder where both the machine or the machine's software will be able to pass files between KEPServer as well as itself. It's important that permissions are set up appropriately for this driver so that KEPServer has the capabilities to read, write, edit, or delete those files that are placed. This means that it can be a mapped drive, but a mapped network drive, as you all are probably aware, requires some special permission settings, so definitely get with your IT teams to ensure that the permissions that are necessary for this driver to operate are there. There's some information in the help file, and we'll also be publishing connectivity guides for various vendor machines to help with the setup of the machines themselves. I do want to note that timing is not well defined in this specification, which means there could be file locking race conditions within this. We've got some parameters within our device objects to help with reducing that functionality. We've also got very verbose event logging for the different conditions that could occur. We did do a lot of work to minimize these issues, but of course we couldn't eliminate the possibility for all of them across all vendors, more specifically the ones that we have not tested against. That last note there, where manufacturers have implemented the specification in different ways, is one of the cruxes of this particular protocol. It was a very fun challenge for our team to work through those different implementations. We have some relaxed parsing rules to allow for that inconsistency, and we've done a lot of work to ensure that we get the data out of the machines that we're expecting. I do want to share that because of the way different ways that vendors have implemented this, there are different ways that they communicate. Some of them require separate applications to enable the EUROMAP 63 communication, and most manufacturers do require a per machine licensing to enable this communication as well. Noting to the first point, I want to share the two different archetypes of dependencies that we've seen. I'm going to start talking about the one on the left, where the vendor has required a separate application to be running to ensure that EUROMAP 63 communication is possible. That vendor application that you can see on the left-hand side communicates in a proprietary way with the machine on the plant floor, and then converts that over to the EUROMAP 63 protocol by transferring files into a shared folder. Vendors that utilize this functionality are Engel, and we've also seen that with Cincinnati Millicron as well as Fanuc. On the right-hand side, you see the other archetype, where the machine is natively using the EUROMAP 63 file transfer and putting that into a shared folder that you see in the center. We've seen this with Sumitomo Demag as well as the Toyo Metal Machinery. There is one option within this, and specifically for the Demag machines, you see the FTP server if necessary there on the left-hand side of that particular diagram. Those machines need to connect to an FTP server. The way that KEPServer interacts with the EUROMAP 63 is via a shared folder that the FTP server is linked to. So the Demag machine points into the FTP server. On the back end of that server is the shared folder that it's looking at. I do want to share a little bit of the functionality on a pretty low level. I know that a lot of you are technical savvy, and I just want to give a little information how this protocol works in a loose way. I'm going to show some timing, sort of timing here associated with the way that files are placed and read. But as I mentioned, it's not very well laid out in the protocol as to the order, and so the order in which these files are laid down by the machine do vary based on the particular vendor. But to start communication off, KEPServer drops a couple of files, including a session and a job request file, and the vendor is going to be looking into this folder for these particular types of files, and it's going to read that session and job file. And after doing that, it's going to lay down a few files to identify that it has gotten those requests. It puts down a session response, a job response, as well as a data file providing the data that has been requested through the job. And to indicate that it is done with its session, it would delete the session request. That indicates to KEPServer that the machine is ready for us to read the information, so we go out and read the different responses. And after parsing that information and understanding and providing that into the tags within the server, we go and we clean up the files. So pretty straightforward as far as file transfer. What's really interesting and the really fun part of developing this driver has been the variances between the different vendors and the way that they implement it. A couple of items that I don't have on slides that I would like to mention is that we do have automatic tag generation capabilities with this driver, as well as tag validation with this driver to ensure that you're requesting tags that exist within that machine specifically. Additionally, it's important to know that timing requests is very important, and that almost the opposite of the Nyquist sampling theorem, with this particular driver, you're looking for your request timeout to be longer than the cycle time of the machine, because these machines will only respond to a request after the completion of a cycle time. So if your plastic part takes 30 seconds to be completed between cycles, we recommend that you set the request timeout to 1.5 times that to ensure that you've got enough time for the machine to respond from each request. So, looking at 45 seconds for that particular instance. So I want to open up to Q&A. As I was going through the EUROMAP slides, we did get a couple of questions in. So I'm going to start off with those. As usual, any questions I don't get to during this time, we'll follow up with you afterwards, either myself or an applications engineer here at the Kepler Business, to ensure that you got all the information you need. The first one that I want to get to here is one about pricing and packaging. I apologize for not saying this already. The EUROMAP 63 driver, it will not be part of the manufacturing suite. That is going to be a premium driver, and its price in US dollars for the first year with support and maintenance is $2,040. So another one just came in, is how many machines can I connect to with a single server? So we've started off with a capability of 256 on that. We've done that because a couple of the vendor softwares are only capable of lower numbers than that, actually. It would require a separate application from the vendor to be able to communicate to more. If you have a use case where you're needing more than that, I would love to talk to you. Of course, you can email me directly. Be much appreciated to get your use case. That's always what I'm interested in as a product manager, is to understand what's most important to you. All right, I've also got a question about an earlier section of the slides with respect to the Fanuc Focus, the RD param. It's asking if it depends on the specific vendor of the machine. Okay, so the question is whether or not the RD param is going to allow access to information regardless of the machine manufacturer. The answer is yes. I'm going to say that a little bit loosely, though. The parameters available with RD param would have to be configured by the machine vendor prior to you receiving that machine. So anything that they have decided to enter into their parameters for RD param would be available. The individual machine manufacturer's technical manuals should be able to provide information on what those parameters specifically are. As we gather information on those different vendors and have more information for you, we're looking to have a local source of truth that we can provide for CNC manufacturers. I think we have a few more questions coming in, but I'm gonna head on to the next section here. So about some additional resources that you can find for us. Of course, the training requests can always come in through Kepler.com/training request form. We'll always be having more webinars coming out with each of our releases, as well as information about new fun functionality that we're looking at. You can always find those updates on LinkedIn as well. And please take a look at our newsroom, Kepler.com/company/newsroom, for more information, some multimedia on the fun things that Kepler is up to these days. As always, please feel free to reach out to us in the various different ways, and happy to hear from you always. I'll be following up with all of you individually on some additional questions that you've had here today. But as always, a pleasure having you, and thank you for spending your time this morning, this afternoon, this evening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.